"Stop being dramatic," my mother said over the phone. "Weddings happen every day. Your brother only gets invited to a golf tournament like this once." Across the street, a moving truck idled in front of a freshly painted cottage with pale green shutters. Two men stood waiting to unload a dining table I'd spent 3 weekends refinishing for my parents. On my passenger seat was a signed deed transfer, a set of keys, and a photograph my aunt had accidentally posted an hour earlier. My father standing on a resort golf course, raising a glass of champagne, looking completely healed from the paralyzing back injury that kept him from walking me down the aisle yesterday. I rolled down my window, looked the mover in the eye, and said, "Drive it to storage." Nobody is moving in. Next to the deed transfer was a sealed envelope, Mom and Dad's retirement home. Inside were photographs of the cottage, a handwritten letter, and the paperwork explaining that the house would be transferred to my parents the morning after my wedding. At least that had been the plan. One of the movers walked over and tapped lightly on my window. "Miss Perez, are we still unloading?" I looked at the cottage, then at the envelope, then at the photograph my aunt had accidentally posted less than an hour earlier. My parents were standing on a golf course beside my brother, Jonathan. My father had one arm raised in celebration. My mother was holding a glass of champagne. Neither of them looked worried about his back. Neither of them looked sorry they had missed my wedding. I opened my contacts and called the title company. "Janice Harper's office," the receptionist answered. "This is Amanda Perez. I need to stop tomorrow's transfer." There was a pause. "Is there a problem with the property?" "No," I said. "The property is fine." I watched the movers through the windshield. "The problem is the people I was giving it to." Because when I finally understood what they had done, the empty chairs at my reception were the least painful part. For most of my life, I had been the dependable child. Jonathan was the exciting one. He was 2 years older than me, but somehow every mistake he made was treated like evidence that he needed more support. When he dropped out of community college, my parents said he was finding himself. When he lost a job because he stopped showing up on Mondays, his manager was unreasonable. When he borrowed $8,000 from my father for a landscaping business and spent half of it on a used boat, he had simply underestimated his startup costs. I was different. At 16, I worked weekends at a grocery store. At 19, I paid my own tuition. At 27, when my parents' water heater failed, I replaced it without being asked. My mother thanked me by saying, "You've always been so easy." For years, I mistook that for praise. By the time I was 35, I had built a stable career managing commercial insurance accounts. I wasn't wealthy, but I was careful. I saved automatically. I drove cars until the repair bills became embarrassing. I understood that money was stored time, and I hated wasting either. My fiancé, Robert Bishop, understood that about me. Robert was patient, steady, and incapable of pretending not to notice when someone was taking advantage of me. 6 months before our wedding, my parents mentioned that their rent was increasing again. My father had planned to retire within 2 years, and my mother was already talking about moving somewhere smaller. A week later, I found the cottage. It was modest. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a screened porch, and a little workshop behind the garage where my father could repair fishing reels and radios. The kitchen had yellow cabinets from the 1980s, but the roof was new. The foundation was solid, and the monthly costs would be far lower than their rent. Robert walked through it with me. "You're serious," he said. "They'll never be able to buy something like this after Dad retires." That isn't what I asked. I ran my hand across the kitchen counter. "Yes, I'm serious." He studied me for a moment. "Then keep it in your name until you're certain. They are my parents." "I know." He didn't argue further. I bought the cottage with a large down payment and a small mortgage in my name. My plan was to furnish it, complete a few repairs, and reveal it after the wedding. The title transfer was scheduled for the following morning. My parents knew only that I had a major surprise for them. My mother guessed it was a cruise. My father guessed I had paid off one of their credit cards. Jonathan guessed money. He always guessed money. 3 weeks before the ceremony, my parents confirmed they were attending. My mother responded to the digital invitation and added a message. We wouldn't miss it for the world. I printed the confirmation and placed it in my wedding binder because the venue needed a final count. Their seats were at the front, 2 chairs beside the aisle, reserved with small framed photographs from my childhood. 3 days before the wedding, my father called. He sounded strained. "Amanda, I've done something to my back." I stood in my kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear. "What happened?" I bent down to pick up a box and felt something pull. "I can barely walk." My mother took the phone. "He's in terrible shape. We may have to miss the wedding." The words didn't register at first. "Miss it? We're devastated," she said. "But he can't sit in a car for 2 hours. I prepaid your hotel. You could come Friday and rest before the ceremony. He can't travel." "What did the doctor say?" "We're waiting to hear back." I offered to arrange a car. I offered to move their hotel room to the ground floor. I even asked whether we should postpone the ceremony by a few days, though I knew the venue was fully booked for months. My mother refused every solution. "This isn't about logistics," she said. "Your father is injured." I felt ashamed for questioning her. That night, she texted a blurry photograph of my father lying on their couch with a heating pad across his lower back. He looked tired. I cried in Robert's arms after seeing it. The morning of the wedding, my mother sent one message: "We love you. Please don't let this ruin your day." I tried not to. The ceremony was beautiful. Robert's hands shook when he read his vows, and that made me laugh through my tears. My Aunt Sarah fixed my veil twice because the wind kept catching it. Robert's mother hugged me so tightly afterward that one of the pins in my hair came loose. But every time I looked toward the front row, I saw those 2 chairs. The venue coordinator eventually removed them before dinner. She thought she was helping. At the reception, my phone stayed in my purse until my cousin approached me near the bar. "Amanda," she said quietly, "have you seen Jonathan's pictures?" Robert was beside me. He heard the change in her voice and reached for my hand. "What pictures?" I asked. She turned her phone around. Jonathan was standing beneath a stone arch at a luxury golf resort 3 states away. My parents were beside him. My father was upright, smiling broadly, with a golf glove tucked into his back pocket. The caption read, "Family comes first. Perfect weekend with the people who always show up." I stared at the photograph until the screen dimmed. My cousin touched my arm. "I'm sorry." I didn't cry, not then. I walked into the hallway outside the ballroom and called my mother. She rejected the call. I tried again. Rejected. Jonathan answered on the 3rd attempt. "What?" he said over loud music. "Why are Mom and Dad at a golf resort?" He sighed as though I had interrupted something important. Dad's back improved, so he couldn't sit in a car for 2 hours, but he could fly 3 states away? It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. "You're at your wedding, Amanda." "Go enjoy it, Jonathan." His voice hardened. "Stop being dramatic. Weddings happen every day. I only get invited to this tournament once." Behind him, I heard my mother say, "Don't fight with her." Then the call ended. I returned to the ballroom and smiled through the cake cutting. That was the first performance. Theirs came online. Mine happened in photographs. For 2 days, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe my father's pain medication had worked. Maybe the golf trip had been planned for later and moved unexpectedly. Maybe Jonathan had pressured them. I emailed my parents instead of calling. I attached their RSVP confirmation, the hotel reservation I had prepaid, the seating chart, and the rehearsal dinner itinerary. I wrote 3 sentences. "I'm not trying to fight. I need to understand the timeline." "When did you decide to attend Jonathan's trip instead of the wedding?" My mother answered 4 hours later. There was no decision. "Your father had a medical emergency." When he improved, Jonathan offered to take us away because we were so upset about missing the ceremony. Please stop looking for reasons to punish us. Attached was the same photograph of the heating pad. For a few minutes, I nearly believed her. Then Aunt Sarah called. She sounded sick. "Amanda, I posted something I shouldn't have." The photographs had already been deleted, but I had saved one. It showed my parents at the resort's welcome dinner. I zoomed in. A printed sign behind them displayed Thursday's date. My father had called me about his back on Friday afternoon. Aunt Sarah had downloaded the original photographs from my mother's shared album before posting them. When she sent me the files, The metadata showed they had been taken Thursday evening at 7:42. My parents had arrived at the resort almost 24 hours before telling me my father was injured. That was when I stopped asking for explanations. I started collecting records. The airline confirmation my mother had once forwarded to Sarah showed the tickets had been purchased 9 days before my wedding. The resort's public tournament schedule showed the welcome dinner on Thursday. A customer service representative sent me a copy of a reservation summary after I explained that my card had once been used for a deposit on Jonathan's account. Included by mistake was a digital key activation record. My parents had checked into their room at 3:18 Thursday afternoon. The supposed injury had not happened yet. While I collected documents, my family collected sympathy. My mother posted a photograph of herself staring through a window. Sometimes parents must make impossible decisions. We pray our daughter's heart softens with time. Relatives filled the comments. A mother's love is never easy. You did what you thought was best. Amanda will understand when she has children. Jonathan told people I was angry because my parents had refused to help pay for my fancy wedding. The truth was that Robert and I had paid for everything ourselves. Still, cousins stopped answering my messages. An uncle told Aunt Sarah that success had made me cold. My parents had created a version of events that required no dates, receipts, or questions. They had the frame. I had the paper. The worst document arrived from a cousin named Melanie. She called me late one evening. "I'm sending you something," she said. I wasn't supposed to see it. A screenshot appeared on my phone. It was from a family group chat I hadn't known existed. My brother had added her to help coordinate travel and forgot to remove her. Jonathan had written, "Just tell her dad hurt his back." My mother replied, "She'll believe anything if we sound guilty enough." Jonathan, "Perfect. After the wedding, she'll still give you the house." My father, "Delete this conversation." At the top of the screenshot was the date. 9 days before the supposed injury. The same day the airline tickets were purchased. I read it 3 times. Robert sat across from me at our dining table. "What house?" he asked quietly. I handed him the phone. He closed his eyes for a moment. They know enough. Somehow, my parents had learned that the surprise involved a home. Maybe they had seen an email notification on my laptop during a family dinner in my home 3 months earlier. Maybe Jonathan had heard something from the real estate agent's assistant. The exact source no longer mattered. They believed the house was guaranteed. My wedding was optional because the reward had already been secured. The next morning, I met Janice Harper, a real estate attorney recommended by my mortgage broker. Her office smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. She read every document without interrupting me. When she reached the group chat screenshot, she leaned back. "Has the deed been signed over? No. Have your parents signed a gift agreement? No. Do they live in the property? No. Have they paid anything toward it? No." Janice placed both hands on the file. "Then they do not own this house. They have no legal interest in it." A planned gift is not a completed gift. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "The transfer is scheduled for Monday." Not anymore. She contacted the title company while I sat there. The transfer was postponed, then formally withdrawn. The escrow instructions were amended. Every relevant email, screenshot, and file was preserved. I drove directly from Janice's office to the cottage. That was when the movers asked whether they should unload. I sent them to a storage unit instead. My parents discovered the transfer had stopped before I told them. My father had apparently been calling the title company for updates. By that evening, my mother had published another statement. "We have declined Amanda's house because love should never come with conditions. We wish her peace." Jonathan posted a photograph of himself outside the cottage. Some doors close for a reason. Still grateful for the memories we almost made here, he had never lived there. My parents had never slept there, yet neighbors began leaving welcome cards in the mailbox. Someone sent flowers. A woman across the street congratulated my mother in a Facebook comment. Their performance had grown so large that complete strangers believed they had rejected a home they had never owned. Then my mortgage broker, Colin, forwarded an email chain. "Thought you should see this," he wrote. My father had contacted Colin 3 weeks before the wedding. He asked when the title would transfer. He asked whether his and my mother's names would appear immediately. He asked how soon a new owner could refinance. Colin had refused to discuss my loan with him. 2 days later, Jonathan contacted another lender. He claimed his parents were about to receive a debt-free property from a family member and wanted to know whether they could borrow against the equity immediately. Attached to his inquiry was a list of debts: credit cards, a failed business loan, online gambling accounts, a personal loan owed to someone whose name I didn't recognize. Jonathan had not simply assumed my parents would live in the house. He had planned to use it. There was also a voicemail. His voice was cheerful. Once the deed is in their names, we're looking at pulling maybe 60 or 70,000. They are on board. My sister doesn't need to know the details. I played it for Robert. He looked toward the unopened envelope on our counter. They were going to mortgage your gift. Yes. And leave your parents with the debt. Yes. He took my hand. What are you going to do with the house? I don't know yet. What are you going to do about them? That answer came more easily. Nothing privately. Janice sent a formal letter confirming the transfer had been withdrawn and that all future communication regarding the property had to go through her office. My parents called 14 times that day. I didn't answer. Jonathan left a voicemail accusing me of stealing from them. You promised that house, he said. You can't take back something you already gave us. Janice responded with one sentence. No gift was completed, no ownership was transferred, and no enforceable agreement exists. Jonathan threatened to sue. No lawsuit was filed. The lender he had contacted reviewed his application and discovered he had represented future equity as though it were guaranteed. His pending credit request was closed. The wedding venue preserved its attendance records and security footage after Janice requested them. The footage showed my parents' reserved seats empty throughout the ceremony. My tax advisor documented that no gift tax filing had been completed because no transfer had occurred. The resort records showed my parents had checked in before my father claimed to be injured. The group chat screenshot showed the excuse had been planned. The airline records showed the trip had been booked in advance. The lender inquiry showed why the title mattered so much. No single document told the whole story. Together, they left nowhere for the lie to hide. My parents began deleting their posts. Jonathan removed the photograph outside the cottage. My mother erased the window picture and the comments beneath it. It didn't help. Relatives had saved screenshots. For weeks, the same people who had told me to forgive began calling with cautious apologies. A cousin said, "We didn't know the trip was planned." An uncle admitted Jonathan had told him my parents paid for the wedding. Aunt Sarah stopped inviting Jonathan to family dinners after learning about the refinancing plan. Jonathan's girlfriend called me once. She didn't ask for gossip. She asked whether the lender documents were real. I told her Janice could confirm their authenticity if necessary. 3 days later, she moved out of Jonathan's apartment. My father stopped attending his Saturday breakfast group after 2 relatives confronted him about the chat. My mother remained silent for 17 days. Then a handwritten letter arrived. The envelope was addressed in the careful block letters she used for birthday cards. The letter was 4 pages long, most of it explained. Jonathan had been under pressure. The golf invitation was important for his business contacts. My father had been worried about retirement. They thought I would be busy with Robert's family. They never intended to hurt me. Near the end, one sentence was underlined twice. We convinced ourselves you would understand. I left the letter on my desk for a week. Then I wrote back. I accept that you regret your decision. I will not restore the house or finance your retirement. I will not resume weekly visits, holidays, or financial support. Any future relationship will require honesty, accountability, and permanent boundaries. I sign my name. No insult, no list of sacrifices, no speech about karma. Jonathan never apologized. He sent 2 messages demanding the cottage address be removed from his credit paperwork, then blamed me when the lender requested additional documentation. I gave both messages to Janice. He received no reply from me. Robert and I moved into the cottage 6 months later. It was smaller than the home we had planned to buy, but the screened porch caught the evening breeze, and the workshop became Robert's office. We painted over the yellow kitchen cabinets. I planted rosemary along the brick path. On our first wedding anniversary, I hung a photograph from the ceremony in the living room. Robert and I were standing beneath the oak trees, laughing as the wind pulled at my veil. At the edge of the photograph, 2 chairs sat empty. I considered cropping them out. Instead, I left the picture exactly as it was. Then I placed the unopened envelope labeled Mom and Dad's retirement home in the bottom drawer of my desk, closed it, and turned the key.